Welcome to the Rise to the Challenge podcast. Joining today, he's an international model, real estate investor, and trainer. It's Jonathan Niziol. How are you doing today, Jonathan?
Great, Alex. How are you?
Doing good. We are so excited to have you on the show to talk about your rise to the challenge. What we like to do with all of our guests is go right to the beginning. Talk about where you're from and what you like doing growing up.
So I'm originally from Canada. I'm coming to you from Texas right now, but I'm from Canada, born and raised, about 2.5 hours outside of Toronto. East of Toronto. I grew up on a 500-acre farm out there. It was a wonderful childhood. Tons of time spent outdoors. Lots of hard work to be done on the farm. Lots of lessons to be learned on the farm. I've always been very athletically driven, and I guess you could say obsessed. I mean, fitness and sports have always been a very big part of my life. So that was a big part of my childhood. Very family oriented, but yeah, that's kind of how I grew up. And then I moved here to Texas about 4 years ago, almost 4.5 years ago. So I'm in Fort Worth, Texas, and I love it. I'm gladly taking the 100-degree summers to not have to deal with the minus 40-degree winters in Canada. So I'm really enjoying it.
I was going to say you can go to polar opposite territories in certain seasons from Canada to Texas.
Yeah, and that's what I was looking for too. Like I've traveled quite a bit for work, and I've lived all over the U.S. for work and for school and stuff. And I was in Philly and New York and Miami, and I've traveled all over. And I'm a dual citizen, thankfully, because my father was born and raised in Michigan, and I was like, I'm taking this other passport. I'm heading south, like really south. That's far. So yeah, I grabbed my dog, 26-hour drive, just had the Jeep and the U-Haul trailer and hired some movers to grab the stuff and didn't look back. I didn't want to look back and say like, what if, or I should have, or I wish I would have. And yeah, I'm very glad that I have, because Texas has now become my home. And my father lives about 20 minutes away from me now. He moved down here 2 years ago. So yeah, it's a great place to be.
With growing up on a farm, what is the biggest thing it taught you about yourself growing up on the farm and kind of doing the chores and the task on the farm?
So growing up on a farm, I always like to explain too, like the farm, we had a beef cattle farm, but our cattle, it wasn't like a beef processing farm. We had show cattle. So we would breed purebred Charolais show cattle. They're the all white ones. And we would go to shows like dog shows. So they were pets more than they were food. They got treated fantastically. And but the thing that it taught me the most is that it doesn't matter if you don't feel like it that day, or you just feel like pushing it off or procrastinating something. Like, these animals' lives depend on you, and if it's 40 degrees out and 9 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning and a cow is having a calf, then you have to get up and you have to go and be a part of that and make sure it happens. And that's with feeding, that's with doing hay in the summer. That's we didn't have we weren't working all the time, but most of our long weekends, most of our holidays, our afternoons, evenings, that was work. And it taught me a really good work ethic and that discipline of, I don't feel like it. It's like, well, too bad if you don't feel like it. It's like, we gotta do this. Like, these things, like I said, their lives depend on you, and the circle of life too. It taught me a lot about that, because on farms, things die, they live, whether it's plants or animals or whatever. So it taught me a lot about the circle of life when I was younger. And yeah, I loved it. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was a wonderful, very freeing way to grow up, just to be able to say to my parents, like, okay, I'll be back, and just walk off into the woods or the field for 6 hours with my dogs. And, that would just be what I would do. And I'd come back and, I was just free. I was out there, building forts. And gladly, my parents never bought me a Nintendo. I'm a bit older than you probably, but Nintendo was still around. Sega Genesis was coming up, and they didn't buy it. They were like, you're on a 500-acre farm. Like, go outside and build something. Like, go jump off something. Like, work, or like just do something. And I was like, okay. I mean, great. So they really always encouraged my outdoor activities. So when I was into skateboarding in high school, I had a big paved driveway. My dad and I built all kinds of ramps. I had my own little skate park. And like with hockey and lacrosse being a big part of my life all throughout my life, we had a whole setup for that and stuff. So yeah, being outside, but just the fact that you have to do things sometimes when you don't feel like doing them. And that's kind of how things get done. And you do it till the job's done. I mean, persistence. You stay till the job's done. Like you don't just hang out and I'll get back to it. And yeah, so I would say that would be my long answer of what I learned living on a farm.
And that's such a concept nowadays where you see people in the fitness industry, the work industry. It's kind of like being persistent to finish the job, finish the task, finish the workout, because you're not going to get the results if you do it half the effort. And especially on a farm, those animals are dependent on you, and you got to be out there and take care of them and all what you did.
Yeah, absolutely. And my father always says too is just get started. Like if there's something to be done, if there's a task to be done and whatever it is just get started and see it through till it's finished, because it's waiting like, oh, I'll start next week. And I've done this, I do this myself. Like I see myself doing this as an adult and stuff. Like, oh, okay, I'll start on Monday. I'll start on whatever. It's like, just get started. And, there's not going to be a perfect day and you're going to work through it and stuff like that. I should also mention my parents owned an architectural design firm as well. So they had like 2 full-time jobs. So a lot of it being the only son in the family, a lot of the farm work fell on me when my dad was traveling for work and stuff like that too. So, but I wouldn't have had it any other way because I knew that they relied on me and he relied on me. And that made me, want to do it and do it even better and to the best of my ability and to really like work and yeah, I remember just, coming home from school, like, I mean, a long day at school, like it was so hard, but coming home from a day of school and then it was time to go pick rocks and we would just go walk up and down the field. You put the tractor in first gear and it just kind of cruises along by itself. And you hop off the tractor and you just walk along, you find a rock that's going to it's too big, it's going to damage the equipment, and you throw it in the bucket. And we just walk up and down the fields for hours upon hours. But I love it. I loved it, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was a wonderful upbringing for sure.
You talked about being outdoors was such a huge part of your life, and you talked about playing sports. What sport was like your favorite, or the one that you kind of wanted to maybe pursue long term, or that was your best skill at, or that you were skillful at?
So being in Canada, and I'm going to obviously say already, it was hockey. Yeah. Like it my parents weren't from Canada. My mother's was from Trinidad, and my father, like I said, from Michigan. So they didn't grow up playing hockey, but we were in Canada, and it was the 80s, and it was like, you're going on the ice. I remember I was like, okay. And I remember going out there and falling and crying, and I'm not made for this. And he's like, get out there and I grew to love it. And then lacrosse was my second love. And again, my mom just saw a commercial on TV. She's like, I'm not sure what that sport is, but you're playing it. And I'm like, okay. So in the winters, it was hockey. In the summers, it was lacrosse. I, like every kid, wanted to be, the next Wayne Gretzky or a professional hockey player and raise the Stanley Cup and go to the NHL and stuff like that. But it actually turned out to be lacrosse. That was the one that took me the farthest. I wasn't able to continue playing lacrosse because they didn't offer it at my school when I was in I think grade 7. So I had to kind of put that on the back burner, and I played soccer, hockey, and cricket, I love cricket. It's not something that people play very often, but I love it. And then it just so happened that I went to a different school in the States outside of Philadelphia in grade 12 for senior year. And they had lacrosse. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll pick up lacrosse again. And I guess I was still kind of decent at it because I was selected for the all-state Pennsylvania team that year, and then got a scholarship. And then I went on to continue to play professionally, to play pro lacrosse. So yeah, it turned out to be lacrosse, and it was, but I still play hockey to this day. This weekend I had a tournament. I had 5 games in 3 days, and I'm definitely feeling it, but I love to do it. Texas has a great hockey atmosphere, and just group of people and lots of rinks, and it's a little bit easier on the joints than lacrosse and then running and stuff like that. So I play on 4 different teams, 4 different leagues, 4 days a week, and that's how I get my cardio on my leg days in. But yeah, lacrosse gave me a lot of really great opportunities to, like I said, go to school, to travel, to play professionally, and yeah, it's pretty wonderful.
Was it always the goal to play pro lacrosse or be in the pro leagues for that? Or kind of that question of what's that dream job for you? What was that dream job if it wasn't lacrosse?
I mean, ask me, like, my first job that I ever wanted to be growing up at a farm was a professional bull rider. I thought they were just I thought they had it all figured out, man. They were the coolest, and we had very docile cattle that we would walk around a show ring. So my dad would put me on the back of them. They would just sit there and be like, "Okay, like, what's the kid doing?" Like this isn't like I see on TV, which I thankfully, because those guys are crazy and they break like almost every bone in their body. They're
Yeah.
insane. Um, but no, it wasn't actually. It was like I said, I just happened to pick it up like happenstance when I was in grade 12, and then stopped playing, and I came back to the area kind of where I grew up, and I knew of like the Canadian Professional League that was there, and I was like, okay, I remember these guys. Maybe I'll go try out for this team, and made it, and then got drafted to the NLL, the National Lacrosse League, and just happened the way it was. Yeah, it was nice when I was growing up. I find now that kids, people in general, I mean, if you're, and I respect this completely, but it was just very different when I grew up. Like, if you're good at something or you have an interest in something, like say hockey in Canada, then that's what people do all year round.
Mhm.
And you have a dry land coach, you have a nutritionist, you have all these things that we didn't have access to. Like when hockey season ended, we put our bag away, we put our skates away, and then I'd pick up my lacrosse stick for the summer and just kind of forget about hockey. I'd go to a couple of hockey camps during the summer because my parents were really great that way. They would afford me that opportunity, but I wouldn't obsess about it all the time. Whereas now people want the next Sidney Crosby or the next Connor McDavid. They want, like, when they put in all this time, and that's where I kind of got burned out at college when lacrosse kind of started to become a job. Even though I did go on a couple years later to play professionally, that was the first time where it was like, oh, I've got to, play fall ball and do this and do that. And I wanted to just be a college student and stuff. So I can see how people have that determination and that drive, and I respect it. And the fact that they have those outlets and those things to work on all year round. But I think it's good to have the variety where you like take a break and step away from it too. A lot of players, older players, talk about that a lot, and how looking for that when they're recruiting. Like, is this person just obsessed with this one sport, or they have a multitude of sports, and yeah, things like that. So
Well, you think about one injury can change the whole outcome of them being an athlete. A life
absolutely,
event can change the whole outcome of their career. So not having those other passions or those other activities or other paths that they want to go is so difficult because they are one-minded to go that one route. Did
very
that
true.
ever come about for you where when you had that burnout starting, that you kind of wheels were turning like, okay, what direction could I go now?
Definitely. I mean, that's how you identify yourself, right? Like, I mean, now with my careers and things like that, we identify ourselves as, and those are our identities, I should say, as opposed to identifier. Those become your identity, and like it's Jonathan Niziol, the lacrosse player, or Jonathan Niziol, the hockey player, and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen after college. I just kind of bounced around a little bit to a couple jobs, and then ended up working for my father at his architectural firm, which I'd always wanted to do. But yeah, you're right. It very much like, and even throughout my years, as we get into the later years, as I had a career-ending injury at 26, it was like, okay, maybe it's time to, my body's telling me. Like, I had a good run of it. I got to 26. I tore my knee. I can rehab it and come back and maybe like re-injure it, but like I feel like that's kind of like the universe kind of telling me that this is time to move on. And I lost contact with a lot of the people that I played lacrosse with, and the people that, you know, I interacted with in the community. Not obviously because they're bad people, just because we didn't have that in common anymore. Because, you know, that was our common bond, and I still see them on Facebook, and they're still great people and stuff. But, you know, it was every weekend, 3 times a week. You know, we'd always see each other, and yeah, that kind of, that chapter closed, and then, you know, it's on to the next one, and trying to find out. You're right. Sometimes you're left scrambling. You're like, that was my chapter, and that was my identity. That was who I am. Like, what next? And then I'm a big believer in, when one door closes, another one opens, and everything happens for a reason. And um, yeah, you have to really look for, and, you know, have ideas for what those next things could be. But having multiple, like you're saying, having multiple interests or things going on at the same time, in case of, or just to have variety in your life. You know, that's the one thing I'll talk about as we talk about my life and stuff. Is I was very single-mindedly focused. My dad says it's my greatest asset and my worst, because, you know, when I wanted to play lacrosse, I played professional lacrosse. When I wanted to drink, I drank until I became an alcoholic and was in the hospital for a month and almost died. And when I decided I wanted to start like working out, I did that obsessively. But, you know, I've started to learn balance now. But yeah, much more balance. It's good to practice that, because you're right. If something does happen, God forbid, knock on wood, but it's good to know who else you are, who you are besides that, you know, besides that thing, like who you truly are. So
You just talked about some big moments that happen in your life with the injuries, with alcohol. A lot of steps that happened in your life took a turn. Did you feel that this was kind of hurting where you're going next, because you maybe had a moment like the injury, and then it kind of changed your path, and then something else may have happened? Did that ever hurt mentality on, I don't know where I'm going to go because something could happen?
yeah, I mean, so my story, I guess, really begins like the day before my 21st birthday, and an instance like that. And I'd come back from college. I was living on the farm for about a year with my mother, to spend some time. And then it was time, you know, I was 20. I was like, okay, I want to move out. I want to get my first adult job. I was going to go sell cars in this place that was about 2.5 hours away. You know, time to get out on my own, time to do my own thing. And the day before my 21st birthday, I got a call, and it was from my home number. And I was expecting that we were going to, like, you know, just plan what our plan was, because she was going to come up and we were going to celebrate my 21st birthday. And it was, hey, Jonathan, your mother's dead. And I was like, what are you talking about? And it was literally like that. I remember I was going to the fish store to buy fish for my aquarium, for my tank. And I put my hand on the door, and I'm on my like Nokia cell phone or whatever it was back in the day. And my life completely just fell apart as of that moment. And that was like, my mom was my best friend, my biggest supporter, just, you know, my world. And it was so sudden, so unexpected, that I didn't know what to do. I mean, I had no idea what to do. And that was the first time I really learned too, that like, so the day of my mom's passing, you know, everybody's rushing around. We've got things to do. We have to go here. We have to do there. We have to go, you know, view the body, all the stuff you have to do. And I noticed that, you know, I'm in my head, and my life as I know it has ended or completely changed. At that moment, I thought my life had ended, because, you know, my mom was everything. I love my parents dearly. And but McDonald's was still open, and people were still going to the gas station and still delivering FedEx parcels. And I'm like, like, why isn't everybody stopping this? Like, my life as I know it is like, and that's when I learned that you don't know what people are going through. You don't know who is having that day. You don't know what people have gone through when we are going through our daily routines and our lives and stuff like that. You just don't know. So I think it's important. That's what I really learned. It's important to treat people with respect, everybody with respect, because you don't know their backstory. You don't know what they're dealing with at the moment. Like I said, you don't know what they've been through to get to where they are. And whether it's the person that delivers your food, or the person that you work for, or whatever, everybody deserves the same level of respect. I don't think bank account, muscles, cars, job titles. I don't think any of those things make anybody better than anybody else at all. I think everybody deserves your utmost respect because you don't know what put them in that situation or what they're dealing with. So, because that was, like I said, I was like, how is McDonald's still open? Shut it down. Like, my mom just died. Shut it down. Like, don't you get it? And that's just not the way the world works. So that was a massive one for me because from then, I was diagnosed pretty quickly after with having severe anxiety, clinical depression, panic disorder, self-harm, and suicidal thoughts. And that wasn't talked about 20 years ago. This happened 20 years ago. And I didn't know what was going on with me. I thought I was going crazy. And I love that it's being talked about more now. And that's one of the reasons that I want to talk about my story a lot is, because of the number of things that I've been through. Hopefully people can relate and maybe they're going through the same thing, or use it as a cautionary tale and like, don't go down this avenue if these things happen. Like, trust me, like, learn from my mistakes. But I didn't know what was happening to me. I didn't know what this was. I never heard of, thankfully, I never heard of anxiety. I never heard of depression. It wasn't a thing. And if it was a thing, it was kind of like a joke or a punchline in a show that it would, back then that you would hear about it, and not like a serious, like, hey, it's okay not to be okay and to know what to do next. And yeah, so that rocked my world to the core, that completely, like, just flipped my life as I knew it. And I was playing lacrosse. I had to start playing lacrosse professionally yet. Kind of had things in order for the most part. I was starting to experience, like I said, the anxiety, depression, but I was kind of managing it. And then it just went off the rails. And the only way that I knew how to deal with it was the way that I dealt with my problems, in college and having fun. Everything goes away 15, 20 beers at a time. Everything just goes away for that time. It's like, I'm in the moment, I'm having fun, so I leaned on that and leaned on it hard. And I was probably almost close to 4 years, 3.5, 4 years, I was a non-functioning alcoholic where, I was getting the shakes. I was drinking in the morning. I was drinking by myself. I was getting drunk every single day. I would walk into the beer store and they would have my order like coming out from the back for me. Like, it was that kind of a thing. And everything around me was falling apart as a result. But I only knew that when I would be sober. So it was, as soon as I sobered up, it was time to dive back in because, the relationship strain it was putting on me with my father and I, because, or my girlfriend at the time, or my friends, or my lacrosse and all that kind of stuff. Wasn't playing as well and couldn't stay sober for, the night before a game. Whereas, that's the last time you shouldn't be drinking the night before a game. All these things were falling apart, but I had to quickly dive back into, okay, well, it's time to get rid of those feelings. And I'm very lucky and very thankful that I got a very severe case of acute pancreatitis that put me in the hospital for just under a month. I had to have 5 blood transfusions. I lost 60 pounds in total, 40 pounds in the first 2 weeks, and I almost died twice. And I needed that severity of it. Because I'd had people telling me, hey, maybe you need to like chill out. Maybe like you're drinking a bit much. And I'm like, I got this. Like I knew at a point that I didn't got this, that it got me, but I was still telling myself, because otherwise it meant, feeling your feelings. And that's going to be another big theme throughout our talks and stuff. But otherwise it meant feeling your feelings. And yeah, that, laying in bed at 25 years old, laying in the hospital bed at night by myself, you're 25, you think you're invincible, you think you have all the answers, whatever, you think whatever. And laying there and seeing my own mortality and just, it scared me absolutely straight. It's what I definitely needed. So I came out of that and I basically had to start fresh. I I had a bunch of friends over. I was supposed to be playing in a lacrosse tournament the day that I got out, and they came to visit me because they won the tournament. My buddies came. They brought the trophy over. They came to see me because they heard how sick I got. It was a really fantastic thing. They brought me like the game ball. They all signed it. I still have it in my case. And I said, take every ounce of alcohol out of this house. I was like, grab a grocery bag and take it all. They're like, are you sure? I'm like, oh, I am positive. What I just went through, I do not want to do that ever again. Take it all out of here. So that's what they did. And I've been 16 and a half years sober from alcohol ever since.
With those friends that came over to support you with going through the recovery aspect, did you kind of see them have a change in mindset and being open with you about your struggle, and you actually really understanding if you were acting different post everything?
Yeah, for sure. The first thing I said too is like, hey guys, just because I went through this, like, don't stop calling me when it's time to go out. Like, I'm not going to just sit here with my dog and feel sorry for myself. Like, I still want to go out. I still want to have fun. I still want to be out around everybody. It's just I'm the DD now,
Mhm.
and I'll be around doing that. And yeah, like I was like, don't forget about me. Don't feel sorry for me. Don't just write me off. Like, give me a call. So I did that for the first couple of years, and it was great. It was fun because I still had that group of friends. I was still playing lacrosse. Um, Went back to lacrosse, was having like the best season of my life because now I was healthy. I was working out. I was taking my health seriously. Like, it was awesome. And yeah, they were really good. People didn't know how to. They were kind of on eggshells at first, around me. Like, with what he just had gone through, seeing the drastic changes in me physically from, gaining weight and being an alcoholic, and then losing it all and having to start again and then starting. But I was like, hey man, I'm just the same guy. I'm just the same guy that from just let's just hang and have fun. Like I said, let's go out and just let me be the DD. And when I had my career-ending injury at 26 and my lacrosse career was finalized, is like I said, when that chapter closed. And I still keep in touch with one of my buddies, one of my best friends, who's like, I met him playing lacrosse, and I see the other guys that we talk on Facebook and stuff. But that it's, again, that chapter just kind of closed and moved on to the next one. But everybody was really supportive and really, it was new territory for a lot of people because we hadn't known anybody else who'd gone through this. And we were like, yeah, we were all just trying our best, and they were really, really great, really supportive that way. So I'm grateful to have, and my father as well, obviously, like, he as well was great and very supportive in that aspect and helping me through that. So yeah, it was all new territory for everybody, really.
After that chapter, a lot of times people don't know what's next because, like we talked about earlier with athletes, it's one-minded, they're on one path. What was that next chapter for you? Did you kind of have any ideas, or were you testing different routes to see what was clicking?
So that's a great question, and I didn't have any idea, and I just knew that health was becoming a priority, and seeing, like I said, my mortality and my vulnerability and all that kind of stuff. But my mom had been a model in the late 70s, early 80s, and she always, even though we grew up on a farm, like I said, in the middle of nowhere, she would get her fashion magazines and stuff like that, and she'd talk about fashion, and I'd like sit still like for 5 minutes, like not chasing a tennis ball around or something. And she'd show me, I'd be like, hey, that's actually kind of cool. Like, huh, like, okay, I'm gonna go chase my tennis ball now. But I was like, okay, now I'm in shape. I'm maybe I'll try modeling. Maybe I'll, like, it was kind of a just happenstance of that. And my father asked a work colleague of his whose daughter modeled what the best agencies in Toronto were, and found out the names and went for open castings and got some contract offers and started doing that in conjunction with working for my father and just doing a little bit on the side, and then had the chance to transition into that full time. And it was interesting because I didn't bounce around because I was working with my father, and that was the plan, and I always had wanted to be a part of the business. But then this just kind of happened as a result of, and then I had the chance to start doing it full time professionally internationally. And with his blessing, he's like, yeah, I think with what you've been through and how hard you've worked, and if you can make this work as a career, then go for it. Like, I totally support you. So I just kind of, like I said, when one door closes, another one opens, and slowly transitioned into that, and then officially became a full-time model. And in December will be 15 years that I've been modeling, internationally. So, but I was lucky because I didn't bounce around. I had a very strong place, like I said, with my father and with working there, and I knew that was a thing. But I just kind of looked into this and dabbled and got some opportunities and went on to the next thing.
With being an international model, what has been one of your favorite shoots, locations that you've gotten to visit?
Man, there's so many. Like, doing it for so long and doing it, in the way that I have, I've done thousands of shoots. But places, so I would say, as far as places that really stick out, Cape Town, South Africa was incredible. That was my first modeling trip. I got a contract to go over there. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if lions would be walking on the street. I didn't know, like, this is Africa. What do I know about Africa? Like, I don't know anything about the African continent. Like, I mean, I know what I see on TV. The people are super friendly, absolutely beautiful landscape, great cost of living. That was a wonderful place to live. My first big campaign that I booked was a really memorable shoot. That was I was shooting for Jockey. I was in New York, and I was shooting for Jockey Underwear doing the campaign, and they flew us. They picked two guys, two girls, and I remember too because I went in there and I felt like I had a really good, really good response. And, you feel good about a casting, and then nothing, just crickets. And I'm like, oh well, I guess I didn't get it. And then like 4 months later, they're like, hey, you got the Jockey job. And I'm like, what Jockey job? Like, remember 4 months. I guess they had been going to different stops and hitting like different big US markets, and they picked two guys and two girls. And that was my first time booking a big one where it's like, yes, like, I booked this. They saw a lot of people. So they flew us out to Denver, Colorado, and then we went up about 2.5 hours into the mountains and we're shooting. And I remember the first day of the shoot, being up there, I'm shooting in some boxer briefs, and I'm like, okay, I'm on a big time modeling shoot and stuff. And, they treated us fantastically. But my first shot was a little cabin. I had to jump over the railing, and it was 32 degrees Fahrenheit. It was 1 degree Celsius. And I'm like, huh, like, well, everything gets tighter. So I look really ripped, but so I'm jumping over, and it was a fun. It was, like I said, it was a big one. That being able to see that kind of, to experience the Rockies like that, to have that kind of shoot, to work for a big company like that, just by accident. I'm not this kind of person at all, and I can maybe count on 3 fingers how many times I've missed a flight. But for some reason, the day I was supposed to be coming home from that shoot, my flight was taken off, say, at like 11:30, and I set my alarm for like 10:30. And I had to get to the airport. I just spaced out. And then I was like, you know what? I'm in Denver. I'm going to spend the day walking around. I went and just walked around, had the day to myself, and then flew out the next day. So that was a pretty memorable one too. That was, that was definitely really up. But there's been so many. I met so many wonderful people that, fellow models, people who work, in the crew, photographers, designers. I mean, I met so many wonderful people. Met a lot of not so wonderful people, but that's kind of society, and that's just society in general. I mean, that's just, working life in general. But yeah, a lot of great experiences. But I'd say those two stand out. I could probably think of some more, but yeah, I'd say those two stand out.
Sometimes we hear about the dangers of the modeling industry with health and fitness. Did that ever play an effect with you where, like, stress, starving yourself, anything like that play an effect for you?
Yes, absolutely it did. I have a very addictive personality. Like I said before, it's one of my greatest assets, one of my, worst assets, is where I do something. And when I started working out after getting out of the hospital, I thought, I'm going to work out a lot.
Mhm.
And, I figure I'm working out, I'm doing something good. But if you're going 2 or 3 times a day and you're spending 6 or 7 hours in the gym, that's obsessive. That's, that's too much. So I had that kind of mentality, and I was in South Africa and still working out like a professional athlete because I saw these people, and especially just for myself, I saw these guys like on, covers of fitness magazines, stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, I've got to like really bring my best. So I'm lifting the heaviest dumbbells, all that kind of stuff. And I got there and I was like twice the size of most of these guys because a lot of guys are lean and very ripped. And I was like, huh, interesting. So you start to compare yourself to, you know, say my roommate, like, why is he booking so much stuff? I spend so much so much more time in the gym. Why is he booking more than this? Or why did he book that job and I didn't book this job? So that started to play up in my head. And I, my next stop, I came home from 6 months in South Africa, went back to Canada. I left summer in South Africa and went back to Canada in February. And I was like, just a heads up, I'm going to be miserable for 2 weeks. Like, hey, good to see you guys. Missed you a lot, but like, I'm going to be miserable. So I was there for 2 weeks, and I decided to drive. My next stop was Miami. So I drove down to Miami, and I was already kind of having these body dysmorphia issues and ideas because of what I just told you of like well, why are they and why aren't I? And something about it. And the dark side of modeling, especially then, before the Me Too movement and stuff. So the second day that I was in Miami, I was told by my agency, you're going to be going into casting. This designer, if he likes you, he'll book you a lot, but he's a bit of a creep. But he wants to see you. He designs swimwear and underwear. I'm like, okay. So I'm in my first major US market. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. Been there for 2 days. Hadn't even found a place to live yet. Still in a hotel, but I'm just getting all that stuff worked out. So I go to this guy's house at like 8 o'clock at night. And long story short, I'm trying on some stuff for him. And I come out of the bathroom and he sexually assaults me, basically. And he just, it just floored me that this was happening, like as it was happening. And okay, so I got out of that situation. I, I just, like I said, I was shocked, and I just told him, get away from me, do not touch me. I left, my head spinning. And then 2 weeks later, I started to dabble in what would be an 8-year struggle with an eating disorder. I always say I was a functioning bulimic, because so I started, like I said, I started seeing these guys who were half my size. And I was like, okay, I need to get lean. I need to lose all this muscle because I'm just a naturally, these are my genetics, and I carry muscle. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stop lifting weights completely. I'm going to only run, only do cardio and abs. But I would go through my day. I would eat all my meals, my healthy meals. I would take all my vitamins. I would go to the gym. And then when I would get back to my house and I was alone, I would feel my feelings. And that's when, that same thing I was doing with alcohol, I was like, well, I need something here. And I was eating healthy and learning how to eat healthy. It was, there wasn't as much information as readily available with regards to eating healthy. And there was still a lot of things, learning by mistake, by trying and making mistakes along the way and stuff. But I would check out, I would, buy $100 worth of junk food. I would eat it all, and then I would purge it. And like I said, that went on for about 8 years of doing that. And yeah, that is definitely a big part of, you know, that modeling and that comparison and that, those extremities of fitness and eating and stuff like that, where it not kind of can, it became a problem and became a big problem. But it was like, well, it's better than feeling my feelings. It's kind of like I had the mentality when I was drinking. If I would start drinking first thing in the morning and, it was 4 o'clock and I was wasted, but there's a party happening tonight. If I just make myself throw up, I can kind of hit the reset button and I can go all night. So I kind of went back on that when I would start feeling the feelings about, you know, the sexual assault and my mom and all that, and there's some other like family stuff, then I would, you know, go into that and do that. So yeah, that was definitely a long struggle. And yeah, just took a long time to beat that one for sure. But it's yeah, it's all a process.
After the 8 years, what changed in behavior or mentality that kind of brought you in a different direction?
So while that was going on, like, so I kept traveling. I went to London for modeling as well. I was traveling kind of constantly for about 3 years, which is fantastic, but then it starts to kind of wear on you. So I
Mhm.
was in London. It was the fall. I remember it was right after New York Fashion Week in New York, and they're like, "Hey, this agency in London wants you." I'm like, "Awesome, let's go." So I go, and um, I remember work was good. The weather was crap. You know, it's London in the fall, so it's like depressing, but the work was good. I'm having fun, you know, getting to know a new city, living with a lady that I'd been set up with through the agency. She was a wonderful woman who, um, you know, got placed with. So I was kind of like in a little like a fam like a home environment with her, and um, but then all of a sudden the phone stopped ringing and things got quiet. And I remember 18 days, I would go to the gym, I would go to the grocery store, I'd get a whole bunch of food, I would sit there, I would eat it, I'd throw it up, I would just, you know, it was just whatever. So my buddy and I decided to go to Amsterdam. And I had been completely sober from everything since my pancreatitis because I smoked weed in college, but I had kind of given it up because drinking was more the priority for me. And when I would like be drunk and having fun and somebody passes you a joint and you just take one hit, all of a sudden you've got the spins, you're nauseous, it just ruins your night. So I was like, drinking is much more important to me. I'm going to quit this. And then when I got out of drinking, then I thought, okay, maybe I should not, um, you know, just jump right back into another substance, even though I replaced it with fitness. I didn't realize that in, you know, till later with hindsight. Anyway, long story. I got there, went to Amsterdam, went in Rome. You know, got to smoke some weed. I did, and my mind automatically said, "Hey, that felt pretty good. Let's do that again." So that started about a 7 year struggle with smoking weed. And I know people will say weed's not addictive. Weed's not, that it almost ruined my life, and it was the distraction that I needed. I don't know. I mean, I don't know the. It almost ruined me financially. It almost ruined my relationships. It almost ruined, you know, countless things. I would smoke so much that I'd be embarrassed how much I was buying from my dealers. So I would go and buy from different dealers to like accrue a bunch of it because, like I said, I was just embarrassed in how like. But I would go through my day, the same thing. I'd go through my day. I'd wake up. I'd train my clients. I'd go to a shoot if I had it. I'd go to the gym, and then it's when I had to feel those feelings, you know, and I had to deal with it somehow. So smoking weed and an eating disorder kind of go like hand in hand, especially with bulimia, because you smoke and you get munchies and then you just want to eat a bunch of food anyway, and then you regret it immediately. So I did that. I was addicted to also nitrous oxide, you know, like whippets, like they're like it's laughing gas, but they call it like hippie crack because it's so addictive. And then had a battle with Adderall and then some back muscle relaxing back pills that were kind of all happened. The weed smoke, like I was smoking weed and doing these other things, and then you know it was time for me to stop smoking weed because I had a bad experience, and I was like, okay, I've been wanting to quit this for a long time. I've been trying to quit this for a long time, but then I started leaning on the back pills, and I was taking these back pills that are they're just over the counter. I knew that if I ever took a prescription back pain pill, I would be like my life would be over. But they were over the counter, and I remember there's 500 milligrams of methocarbamol, which is the active muscle relaxer, and there's 200 milligrams of ibuprofen. It says don't take more than 8 at a time. And I would take them because I had some aches from lacrosse or from working out, and I'd take them when I was smoking and stuff. And it'd like I noticed if I took like 6 at a time, I'd be like, oh, I feel a little bit, I feel kind of good. I feel pretty loose. Like, huh. So when my smoking stopped, I jumped into those with the same mentality that I always do everything. And I got up to the point, and it's amazing what our bodies are capable of as far as, throwing these things at them and tolerance and stuff like that. So I got up to the point where I was taking 100 of those pills every single day. I was taking 50,000 milligrams of methocarbamol and 20,000 milligrams of ibuprofen every single day. And I don't say that proud or bragging. And that's just the fact of the matter. That's just what happened. And I would go in every day and I'd buy the generic bottle. I would just put a handful of 30, drink it down, just with water. Not, of course, I'm not drinking alcohol at this point, so I need something. Another 20 or 30, wouldn't count them out, and it'd be 100 every day. And I started to lose a lot of weight. I had no, I had no energy. I had no motivation. I was getting very lightheaded. I was having fainting spells at my house, and my anxiety was through the roof because I'm having these fainting spells at my house, and I'm thinking like I'm going to be driving on the highway and I'm going to faint and I'm going to hurt somebody, or I'm going to be somewhere in public and I'm going to but I always just thought like, oh, it's probably just from taking 100 pills the day before and 100 pills the day before that and 100 pills the day before that. So I finally got to a point. I was on a shoot, and I remember we were shooting, and I was sitting up on top of a truck, and I had to jump down. Every time I jumped down, I was like, I'm about to pass out. I'm going to cause a scene and pass out. Like something's wrong with my body. And the next morning, I woke up. I didn't take any pills that night because that was just like an anxious, panicky mess to be in that situation. And everybody's like, "Hey, yeah, good shoot." And I'm like, "Ha ha ha, yeah, great shoot, huh?" And I'm just, in my head. And the next morning, I had another shoot at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was brushing my teeth, and my knees were like buckling. Like I couldn't even hold my own weight. I called my agency. I was like, "I'm going to the emergency room right now. I can't go to the shoot." I went. Sure enough, I had a intestinal ulcer, internal bleeding from an intestinal ulcer, but I never knew it because I didn't see any signs of blood. Like I wasn't vomiting blood. I wasn't passing blood. It was just leaking into my abdomen. So I stopped taking them at that point, and I basically that was when I was like, okay, I need to get healthy again. But I was like, I can't do what I've been doing. This plan or these like, and that's the thing too. I've learned to forgive myself a lot for the things that I've done to myself and the things that have been done to me, like losing my mom or the sexual assault. Like, and I lost a couple of best friends as well, unfortunately. But I forgive myself for all of those things because the bad decisions I made, I was just trying to do my best with what I had,
Mhm.
and I didn't know what to do. And the things that happened out of my control, well, those are out of my control, and I can forgive myself for those things, even though I held on to a lot of guilt and frustration and all that kind of stuff. So I said, look, I need to go talk to somebody. There was always an excuse why I didn't want to go to therapy. And it was too expensive, but I always had money for drugs. It took up too much time. I always had time for drugs. I Therapies for wimps. I'm not going to sit there and have somebody judge me. All these things. And I was like, enough is enough. Like, forget all that stuff. I need to do something. I'm running out of substances to go on to next. So I basically just went to a therapist, found somebody through a referral from a great friend of mine, and rolled up my sleeves. And that's when like things got hard. Like I've had people talk about rock bottoms, and I know it's different for everybody. I've hit rock bottom dozens of times where enough is enough. I'm flushing down whatever I'm flushing this or I'm throwing this away and I'm done with it. And then I'll, come back and, you know, break up with somebody or burn a bridge. And I'm like, that's enough. Like I have to stop. And they weren't enough to get me to stop. But when I did this and I had nothing to fall back on, and it was finally just like all of these feelings that I had been not dealing with and kind of pushing off and distracting myself with all these substances and traveling and modeling and work and, building a fitness business. I have my own personal training business. So I would like focus on that. All these other distractions, that's when it all came crashing down, like 15 years of adulthood that I had been putting off. And it was like, okay, like this went back to the farm. It was like, roll up your sleeves. It's time to work. Like there's no, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I wanted to give up and I thought it'd be easier to give up, but I was like, that's just not who I am. I'm going to roll up my sleeves. I'm going to do this hard work and I'm going to do this and focus on this and make this. I'm going to I'm going to make it my way through this. And yeah, that's just what I had to do. And like I said, I had a wonderful therapist to work with who gave me the tools to really teach me how to live for the first time as a functioning sober adult in my life. And I kept always telling myself, like, you need to be the person that people think you are when they look at you, because we all, we judge a book by its cover or whatever, and people are like, oh, there's Jonathan, he's traveling for modeling and stuff. And I looked a certain way on the outside, but on the inside I was absolutely broken. I was just a shell of a person, and I felt like a fraud because everybody's looking at me a certain way or telling me that I'm a certain thing, and I'm telling myself and looking at myself and I see a completely different thing in the mirror. But through hard work and great support and that stick-to-itiveness, and like we talked about in the beginning, like when you start something, you see it through, and it's going to be hard along the way, but you show up every day. And for me, a big thing was focusing on the positives. Like I'm so grateful to have my dog. She's around here somewhere, but she would help me get out of my own head. And when I was cooped up in my apartment and I just was like, this would be just so much easier just to take the other way out. I don't want to talk about it, but you know what I mean? That kind of way out. And I'd be like, no, she is my responsibility. Like like the cattle were on the farm. She is, I made a choice, and I made a promise to her that I will take care of her. I will give her the best life that she can. And I owe it to her to get her out and to walk around the block today. As much as I can't bring myself to even look myself in the mirror, and I owe it to her to do that. And she helped a lot. And yeah, I just did that, and it was really hard. It was extremely hard, but it was extremely rewarding because I did finally learn how to live as a sober, functioning adult for the first time in my adult life at the age of 35. So I've now been 6.5 years sober from everything else. And that's, I think, where this all started with was that's when the eating disorder stopped. I was like, this has got to stop. And I know how to eat properly. I don't have the I don't have like smoking weed to like the munchies will just be that much more when you want to, like, when you're high, you want to eat that much more. I don't have that. So I was like, this is all going to stop now, and I'm turning a new page. I'm going forward differently from here, and it's time to learn how to be that guy. So I just one step at a time. And then I realized how little I actually know and how much, I want to learn, and I want to keep learning. And like speaking to people like yourself and coming into a community and watch some of your podcasts and stuff, and learning from other people. It's like, man, this is amazing. This is awesome. How we can learn from each other, but kind of as the older we get, if we have that kind of mindset, how little we know, and we can just keep soaking and growing and learning from one another. So yeah, I love that.
I love that you mentioned the whole dog aspect, because I just got a dog. She's upstairs laying around, and mentioned how the dogs can change a mental state. Where I wake up and if I'm going through something, I look at her for 1 second and I'm feeling motivated because I made that promise, because I adopted her. I want to give her the best life that she's ever had, and I will spoil her, and she is definitely spoiled. But it's so rewarding because she's always going to be by my side. Like,
Yeah.
she's not going to leave me. unless she wants to go get a toy, then she'll leave me and leave my side. But there's just something about what animals do to us where they kind of just make us feel a little better or a little happier, emotionally better. And it's so rewarding. And kind of how you've gone through that with your dog, where your dog has changed who you are. That's something that we're able to connect with because we're both going through something. And I always feel that, and I appreciate you being so open, because there's people out there that are going to listen to this and they may be afraid to really share that they've gone through a similar experience. And hearing your voice and you sharing, they now can find that community. They can find that connection. They could reach out to you and be able to converse and really share what they've gone through. And that's how we're all there for each other. And I think this platform definitely gives that opportunity for everyone to be able to say, you're not alone. We're all here. There's someone is going through the same thing. It might be just a search to find that person to really connect with.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. And that's why I wanted to do this, because when I first talked about it publicly on my social media, I just said I was revealing, years of secrets and shames, because these were secrets and these are my deepest secrets. I didn't think I talked about alcohol because people knew I didn't drink, because I go somewhere and they'd be like, you want a drink? I'd be like, no, I don't drink. So that kind of, but eating disorder, drug addiction, sexual assault, I never thought I would talk. I thought that was going to the grave with me. I thought, because like I said, they were my secrets, they were my shames. And it's not an easy thing to talk about, and the first few times that I've had these conversations publicly, it's been nerve-wracking and it's been anxiety kind of inducing. But I genuinely, like yourself and like you just said, I want to connect with one person, and I don't think I have it all figured out by all means. Like, first of all, let me just start by saying that, like, I do not think that I got all, quite the opposite. I want to sit here and say, I don't have it all figured out. These are the things that I've been through. Like I said in the beginning, you don't know who's going through what, and we're all, we all deal with different things. But if I can connect with, or like you said, help give somebody that feeling, because I remember just feeling so alone and so empty, and like I conceded that I'll never live a normal life again. I was going to be living a life of addiction or something, or these, mental health issues, everything. It was never going to be normal. And yeah, of course I had the ups and downs of everyday life like we all do. And feeling that is kind of what makes life wonderful. But yeah, that feeling of not being alone and looking at somebody, and I think it's part of the reason why I've gone through these things. I wouldn't change it because it's made me who I am at the time. I mean, they were, drastic and very hard and very tough lessons to learn. But now I think my next step is to pay it forward and to connect and to really help, and to, like I said, to drop that ego, or like I said, that forgiveness for yourself, and to be able to open up, and yeah, to really help us connect like we're doing now, and to reach out. And it is wonderful about these platforms and with technology these days and that kind of stuff, how we can do that. And I think it's a very important thing. And as corny as it sounds, I just want to help people and help make the world a better place, however I can. And if humbling myself and sharing some of the things that I've been through and admitting my faults and experiences and stuff like that helps that, then hey man, I'm all for it. If it's one person, then that's one more than I ever would have thought, and that just makes me feel wonderful. And also, I want to keep learning myself.
Mm-hmm.
This is cathartic for me, to be able to speak about these things and to be able to talk about these things and to meet people like yourself who, you can connect with and to learn from. It's very cathartic and important for me in my own personal growth. So yeah, I think it's a very important thing to be doing and to continue doing and continue. I know a lot of people are doing it, but I think it's an important thing to keep doing.
Something our listeners like to learn even more about our guests. When you're not working, what does Jonathan like to do for fun nowadays?
Well, I play a lot of hockey. Like I said, I mean, I play hockey 4 days a week. I'm a big time homebody. Fitness has always been a very big part of my life. I still love going to the gym, but I've learned how to balance my fitness and my um, it was go to the gym for 2 hours. It was play a hockey game that night, but then it was run 6 miles in between. And I was like, okay. I was like, that's addictive, Jonathan. That's the part we like. The gym and hockey is enough. Like we need to take that part out. Not to mention like it's messing with my knees and stuff like that. Um, so honestly, like I said, I'm a very big homebody. My dog is such a big part of my world. I love her to death, and I'm one of the reasons I wanted to move to Texas, and I wanted her to have because she was an apartment dog. She's a Beagle English Bulldog, and I got her because she kind of fit the lifestyle of where I was living. But I wanted her to have a backyard. I wanted her to have a yard down the street. Not like city living. I didn't want her to have to like just sit there on the heater looking down 20 floors at all the other dogs and people walking around. I'm like, oh. So to answer that question, fitness and athletics are a really big part of my life. Spending time with friends, playing hockey, but I'm a really big homebody. I really enjoy reading, and probably spend a little bit too much time on my phone. But like we all probably do. But I try and spend some of it, at least, not just watching funny dog and cat videos and stuff like. But trying to learn something as well, and to use these tools and technology we have. So yeah, I'm pretty low key kind of. I'm pretty low maintenance, low key kind of guy. Just yeah, I would say that about myself.
So now you're going to go on your phone and it's going to be even more dog and cat videos because, like we say, our phones are hearing everything that we
Always.
talk about. So I'm going to go on my phone and something's going to be showing on a video. The final question I'll ask you for someone that's listened to this interview based on your journey and experience, what tips or advice would you give them to overcome obstacles, accomplish their goals, and rise to the challenge?
I would say that's a good one. I would say that the just get started is a big part of it. Once you're started, persistence, and there are always going to be obstacles, but the persistence. For me, when I was in my darkest times, and like we said about our dogs, I'd look over and I'd see her and I would focus. That was my positivity for the day. And even if it was just a glimpse of positivity, like what a goofball, like what is she doing? Why is she doing that? I would try and focus on that and keep knowing that like you can absolutely do this. And there's no, like, do not quit, persistence, and see things through to the end. And when you see things through to the end, then, congratulate yourself, pat yourself on the back, acknowledge that, and then keep moving forward and set another goal. But the same thing happens with these negative things too. And I will say, like, if something negative happens in your life, take time to really feel those feelings. Take time to, grieve or, mourn or whatever it is you have to do. If it's losing a job, not getting a job, losing somebody, whatever it is, but look back at that situation and try and see, what am I supposed to learn from this? What is the lesson here? And really focus on, and I think that no matter what happens in our life, some of the most horrible things that I've been through have taught me lessons. And it's that hindsight a lot of times where you can't see it, it's like, but if you look back and you see and learn and really like take the lessons from it and move forward with those lessons. And like you say, and I love the name of your podcast, and that's why I knew I had to do it, is rise to the challenge, because this too shall pass. Whether it's something great that's happening in your life, this too shall pass. Whether it's something awful that's happening in your life, this too shall pass. I mean, that's a very important, I think, thing to remember about life in general, is that no matter what's happening, for better or worse, this too shall pass. So rise to the challenge and stay present. And man, you got this. Like, you absolutely got this. If I can, and just I'm doing my best. If I can get through the things that I've gotten through, then whoever's watching this, you absolutely can do it. Absolutely. And, I'm still just working and trying to do my best, but we can do this.
Well, Jonathan, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your rise to the challenge. You're inspiring so many people, and we are excited to see what the future looks like for you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Thanks for having me, man. It was a great pleasure. I really love what you're doing. Like I said, I really enjoyed a lot of really enjoyed your other episodes, and I think it's fantastic that you're making a point of doing this and doing this with a purpose. And yeah, man, just keep it up. Big fan, and yeah, really, really pleased to be on here, and it's my pleasure.